Welcome, listener, to another deep dive. Today we're going to be taking a look at the horoscopo, and I gotta say, this is a topic that has always intrigued me, and I'm really excited to get into it. But before we do, I want to make sure we're all on the same page. When we say horoscopo, we're talking about the system as it's presented in this Spanish Wikipedia entry. So think zodiac signs, planetary positions, and all that good stuff. But it's more than just a fun way to read your daily horoscope in the newspaper. Right?
Oh yeah, definitely. The horoscopo goes way deeper than that. It's actually a complex system with roots stretching back thousands of years.
Okay, so we're talking ancient history here. But before we travel too far back in time, let's break down some of the basics for our listeners.
Yeah.
What exactly is a horoscope? What are its key components?
Well, you can think of it like a cosmic snapshot of the heavens at the exact moment you were born.
Okay, so it's like a celestial blueprint unique to each individual.
Exactly. And this blueprint, it's composed of various elements. You have the zodiac signs, of course, but there's also the casas astrológicas.
Casas astrológicas. That's a new word for me. What are those?
Okay, imagine your life is like this grand house, and it's divided into 12 rooms.
12 rooms. Okay, I'm following.
Each of these rooms represents a different area of your life.
So like one room for your personality, another for your relationships, things like that.
Exactly, you got it. These rooms, they're your casas astrológicas, and the planets, they're positioned within these houses.
So the planets are kind of like the furniture in these rooms, each piece influencing the overall vibe of the space.
Yeah, you could say that. And it's not just about which planet is in which house, but also the angular relationships between them. These are called aspectos.
So it's like a giant cosmic puzzle with all these pieces interacting?
Yeah, and the way those pieces fit together, that's what shapes the interpretation of the horoscopo.
Now, that's what I find really intriguing. We've got these precise calculations based on astronomy, but the interpretation, it often seems so subjective.
Absolutely. That's one of the things that makes the horoscopo so fascinating. The calculations, they're based on the actual positions of the planets. But the meaning we attribute to those positions, well, that's where things get a little more open to interpretation.
Okay, so let's unpack that a bit. What makes the interpretation of a horoscopo so subjective?
Well, think about it this way. Two different astrologers, they might look at the same horoscopo and come up with completely different interpretation.
Really? Why is that? I mean, aren't they working with the same basic information?
They are. But astrology, it's not just about cold, hard facts. It also involves intuition, symbolism, and a deep understanding of the archetypes represented by the planets and zodiac signs.
I see. So it's like two people looking at the same abstract painting. They might see completely different things.
Exactly. It's all about perspective. And that's what makes the horoscope so intriguing. It's not just a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. It's a deeply personal and nuanced system.
That makes a lot of sense. But it also raises the question, if the interpretation is so subjective, how can we know if any of it is actually accurate?
Well, that's a question that's been debated for centuries, and it's one we'll be exploring in more depth later on in our deep dive.
Okay, so stay tuned for that. But for now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the historical roots of the horoscopo.
Okay, so we're going on a journey through time now.
Buckle up, listener. This is where things get really interesting.
So imagine we're traveling back tens of thousands of years.
Whoa. Okay, I'm picturing woolly mammoths and cave paintings.
Not too far off. We're talking about 25,000 to 10,000 BC. And there's evidence of humans tracking the phases of the moon.
Really? How do we know that?
Well, there are these mammoth carvings that seem to depict lunar cycles.
Wow. So even back then, humans were fascinated by the cosmos.
It seems so. And this fascination, it only grew over time.
So where do we go next on our historical journey?
Fast forward a few thousand years to ancient Sumeria.
Okay, the cradle of civilization.
Exactly. And this is where we start to see the development of astrology as we know it. The Sumerians, they were meticulous sky observers.
And they believed that the movements of the planets influenced events on Earth?
They did. And this belief, it spread to other cultures like ancient China and Greece.
So we're seeing a pattern here. Across different cultures and time periods, humans have looked to the heavens for guidance and meaning.
It's a universal human impulse to try and understand our place in the cosmos.
And the horoscopo, it's one of the ways we've tried to do that for centuries.
Exactly. It's a system that's evolved over time. But at its core, it's about connecting the celestial realm with the human experience.
And that connection, it's something that continues to fascinate us to this day.
Absolutely. Even in our modern scientific age, there's still a part of us that yearns to believe that there's something more out there.
Something bigger than ourselves.
Exactly.
So we've touched on the basics of the horoscopo, its components, its history. But there's still so much more to explore.
Oh, definitely. We've only just scratched the surface.
And I can't wait to delve deeper into this fascinating topic. But first, a quick break. Okay, so before the break, we were talking about this fascinating connection between humans and the cosmos, this desire to find meaning in the stars. But of course, we have to address the elephant in the room, the scientific perspective.
Right. And from a purely scientific standpoint, there isn't evidence to support the claims of astrology.
So where does that leave us? We have this ancient practice, this intricate system, but science seems to say it holds no real weight.
Well, it's not about dismissing the horoscope entirely. It's about understanding it from multiple perspectives.
Okay, I like that. So how do we reconcile these seemingly opposing views? How can something be so popular yet lack scientific backing?
It's a complex question, for sure, but I think part of the answer lies in our psychology. We humans are naturally drawn to patterns, even when they don't actually exist.
Right, like seeing faces in random objects or feeling like certain numbers are lucky.
Exactly. And when it comes to horoscopes, we might remember the times a prediction seemed to come true and forget all the times it didn't. It's called confirmation bias.
Oh yeah, we tend to focus on the things that confirm our beliefs, even if those beliefs aren't necessarily based on facts.
Precisely. And then there's something called the Fora effect. Have you ever taken one of those personality tests that seem to describe you perfectly, even though the description could apply to almost anyone?
Oh yeah, all the time. You know, those ones that tell you you're creative and independent, and you're like, wow, that's so me.
Well, that's the Fora effect in action. We're wired to see ourselves in vague descriptions, even if they lack any real specificity.
Fascinating. So even if horoscopes aren't scientifically validated, these psychological factors might explain why they feel so personal and meaningful to us.
Exactly. It speaks to our deep human need to understand ourselves, to find our place in the grand scheme of things.
That makes me think, even if we remove the predictive element, what's left? What is it about horoscopes that continues to intrigue us?
Perhaps it's the symbolism. The archetypes represented by the planets and the zodiac signs can act as mirrors, reflecting back aspects of our own personalities and experiences.
Right. Even if I don't believe Mercury retrograde is going to mess up my technology, I might still find the archetype of Mercury, the communicator, resonating with certain aspects of myself.
Exactly. And the casas astrologicas, those 12 rooms we talked about earlier, they can be seen as symbolic representations of different areas of life, prompting us to reflect on our values, our relationships, and our purpose.
It's almost like a framework for self-discovery. We explore these different aspects of ourselves through the lens of these ancient symbols.
Precisely. And that's where I think the true value of horoscopes lies. They encourage introspection, they invite us to explore the depths of our own psyches.
That's a beautiful way to put it. So even if we approach horoscopes with a healthy dose of skepticism, we can still appreciate their potential to spark self-reflection and a deeper understanding of ourselves.
Absolutely. It's about finding a balance between critical thinking and an open mind.
I love that. Embrace the mystery, but don't check your logic at the door. So, we've covered a lot of ground here. We've looked at the horoscope from different angles, its history, its components, the science, the psychology. Where do we go from here? What should our listeners take away from all of this?
Well, I think the key is to approach horoscopes with a nuanced perspective. Recognize their limitations, but also appreciate their potential to spark introspection and self-discovery.
It's about finding that sweet spot between skepticism and curiosity.
Exactly. And maybe, just maybe, by exploring these ancient systems with a discerning eye, we can gain a deeper understanding not only of the cosmos above, but also of ourselves.
Well, we've certainly journeyed far in our exploration of the horoscope, haven't we? It's a lot more intricate than I initially realized.
It really is. It's like we've peeled back layers of history, symbolism, and even psychology.
From ancient mammoth carvings to modern-day personality tests, it seems like the desire to find meaning in the cosmos is a thread that runs through human history.
Absolutely. And the horoscope, it's one of the many ways we've attempted to make sense of that connection between ourselves and the universe.
But as we've discussed, it's not without its critics, especially from the scientific community.
Right, and it's important to acknowledge those critiques. But I think there's also room for appreciation for the horoscope's cultural significance and its potential for personal insight.
So it's not about blindly accepting everything, but rather approaching it with a critical yet open mind.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between skepticism and curiosity.
And perhaps that's the biggest takeaway from our deep dive. The horoscope, it's more than just a set of predictions or a fun way to pass the time. It's a reflection of our enduring fascination with the cosmos and our innate desire to understand ourselves and our place in the universe.
It invites us to explore the depths of our own psyches, to connect with ancient wisdom and symbolism, and to ponder the mysteries that lie beyond our everyday understanding.
And on that note, dear listener, we come to the end of our deep dive into the Horoscope. We hope you've enjoyed this journey as much as we have. May you continue to explore, question, and discover the wonders of the cosmos and the depths of your own being. Until next time.